Welcome to the show, you guys.
Welcome. Thank you for having us here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see you guys again. So I've seen you at a conference before and maybe had a quick chat, but this is the first time we've actually had a chance to spend the time. So Rowena and Hans, here we are on the Lifestylist podcast. And we're going to be talking about today, folks, a device called the NanoVi. And the audience knows that one of the things that I really pride myself in as being on the cutting edge of modalities and technology, whether they be, a gadget that requires electricity or something in nature that you can use to improve your health and well-being, that I really pride myself in finding the best and the newest and the most powerful. And I got to say that this is one of those devices that has an immediate impact on how you feel. And having been in the game now for 21 plus years of trying every different gadget that's supposed to do this and supposed to do that. I mean, I've got a closet full of things that the ionic foot bath. And I mean, just like you name some weird health device, I've probably tried it. And a lot of them sound cool and there's a lot of bells and whistles, but you try it and you're like, I don't know. I don't feel anything. It doesn't really have any noticeable effect. But from the moment I got the NanoVi, I was like, wow, I have literally, like you could just say, I have more energy after 15 minutes sitting in front of this crazy, weird little tube. And so now I've been using it every day, multiple times per day. And we're going to talk about whether I'm doing it too much, which I do a lot of. So I'm really happy to sit down with you guys and get the real deal on what this is. So let's start out a little bit, Hans, with your background. You seem to be a very smart, sciencey kind of guy. What's your deal? What is your education and expertise?
Yeah, my background is material science. Yeah? A lot of people think material science is about metal and plastic, but material science is going far deeper into biomolecules and those things. And biomolecules are, for example, the content of our cells. And the other part that I'm working now since the last 15 years in is a material science about water. Because we didn't know very much about water. Everybody thought that is not really necessary to look a little bit deeper in. But in the material science world, in the last, let's say, easily 15 to 20 years, the water science was a focus, and we know far more today about it than we were knowing beforehand. So this new science, this research that is done on a lot of many universities, and we work with many universities together. These science are very often basic science, and it takes time to incorporate it in our daily life, to have this then infecting us with products, for example. And it's also kind of more difficult to know about it, because at first, scientific information is spread within the universities, the next generation of students have to adopt it, and then it trickles down into society. So a lot of things which maybe we can talk today about it sounds new for a lot of people, but it's actually some decades old knowledge already.
Awesome. I'm excited. Water happens to be one of my very favorite topics. In fact, a couple weeks ago, I released in 1 week what I called a trilogy, which was the first time I've ever done this, but I did a 3-part series all about water. So I interviewed 3 experts on water, and in total, it was 6.5 hours worth of content. All we talked about was water the whole time. And that, as you know, I'm sure you got 15 years in this, that didn't even begin to scratch the surface. But it was an overview of recommending the best drinking water and explaining, what the problems with tap water and bottled water and how to get spring water and all of that stuff. So it's something I'm really excited to dive deeper into. So, Rowena, how did you get into the health industry and all that?
Well, I backed into it. I came out of the tech industry, and I started working with Hans, and it was more of a favor, I'll just help out, and so on. And I just couldn't leave because it was helpful to people. And when you felt like you were really making a difference in people's lives and their well-being, then I wanted to keep doing that. And so I've been working now for a long time in this area.
When you worked in the tech industry, what kind of stuff did you work on, in what capacity?
My first company was one of the earliest for online international trade organizing logistics. And the second one was international trade documentation over the internet, which was the first company was started in 95, so it was kind of early. before
it was called the internet.
Yeah, It was challenging. It was the two things that seemed to be working on the internet at the time were sex and FedEx.
Right,
And that was on the cover of Wired magazine. And
that's funny.
yeah,
I think the first time I saw internet was probably in 97, and of course my little brothers were the ones that showed me, so needless to say, the first thing I looked at was not FedEx. I was not tracking packages. But you'd have to wait forever, so it's very frustrating, kind of like in real life when you're a teenager, you know. As boys, we're used to waiting, and that's what the internet was like. Okay, I digress. I told you guys I keep it casual here. We have fun on the show. So okay, I'm interested, Hans. Before you had this company, Ang3, and Ang is your last name, okay?
Yep.
What's the 3?
It is also my third company.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's the first company. It was a kind of spin-off company in Berlin, in Germany. I worked.
That's funny. I thought that was like a Brooklyn accent. Yes.
No, I worked pretty much right after the university in the medical device industry and the R&D departments for companies for human implants. Yeah? So we developed human implants like hip and knee implants and artificial bones and dental implants out of different
I
materials.
just got a dental implant.
Yeah. We were one of the first one who created those things. Yeah.
Really?
And this company I worked in was Johnson & Johnson then later, and during reorganization in this company, there was a spin-off possibility for me, and I created my own company and developed my own line of human implants and produced them, marketed them, and then a different other company and asked if they could take this over. Yeah, so that was for me the time where I said, okay, I give it to the next higher level. Yeah, they can carry it on a bigger level than I could do.
Do they still exist?
Actually, I do not know.
You moved on and you're like, peace, I'm out. Okay. That's cool. No looking back.
Yeah, because during the time at Johnson & Johnson, I was not only in the responsibility for the R&D, part of the R&D and for the quality assurance management. I was also doing the FDA registration for these European products, and became very involved in the regulatory affairs worldwide and those things. So
that's why before we started recording, you mentioned your awareness about medical claims you can make and not make. So you must have an intimate understanding of those regulations.
Yes. So I moved then in the second company. Was not Ang2. All these things had different names, but that was focused on consulting other companies with their regulatory affairs abilities and to bring their products in the FDA, markets.
Right.
FDA is not only required for the US; it's also required for other countries.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting. So your path, it's funny when you look back in time like that, isn't it? That you did all these things that paved the way for you to be able to kind of find your what I think is probably your calling now. You got something that really seems to be clicking and working for people, and all of those steps along the way, doing these other things, were sort of leading you to this.
Yeah, right. It fits together. There was a hand-holding thing from one step to the other, and the bigger picture is the big picture.
Yeah. And were you, while you were working within those companies in that industry, were you also interested in alternative health and health food and healing and crazy, devices and things like that? Because a lot of them seem to come from Germany. There's a lot of wacky woo-woo sort of health devices over the years I've seen. Oh, what's this thing? Oh, the manual's in German always. It's like Germany, Russia, and then sometimes Japan. Those seems to be the 3 countries where there's this movement of medical grade devices used to treat illnesses or things like that.
We are basically focused on biology to improve, to create a tool that is necessary in certain areas. The field that is applying these technologies is over the years always changing. I mean, alternative medicine 20 years ago didn't exist, this term, really. Today we have an industry around it. We are not designing a tool for a specific market, so that feeds into this market. We have a tool that works, is validated, and different markets will take advantages of it. So you mentioned now the medical field. We have professional sports people. The sports and the performance area is using our technology. At the end, we have corporate wellness that is using it. And corporate wellness is using it probably to improve the productivity of the clients, not necessarily to think that they have a well-being at their desk. Yeah?
Right.
The group that apply those technologies are always the same. These are humans.
Right.
And that is designed for the humans.
Right. But you personally, were you into health food and all this kind of stuff? Or are you just an average Joe eating pizza and cheeseburgers, drinking Cokes? And have you ever had any health challenges or anything that led you into like, wow, I want to get into something that really supports health? Or
yeah, I was always interested in the health area.
Okay.
Helping people, seeing what kind of advantage they have, also knowing what sometimes not to do because that would be a disadvantage for the person, was always my fear. Even when I was a young boy, I volunteered in life rescue organizations. I was interested to help people.
So
that was a good thing to do. And it gives another satisfaction for your work. You go home at the end of the evening and say, hopefully that will help people. That will be good.
I have that same bug. I have my amp coil over here, this biofeedback PMF thing. I have your device in my hotel room. I have my molecular hydrogen machine, my biomat. I travel with all this stuff because I need it just to perform like I do. I mean, I did 6 interviews yesterday. Today I'll do another 6. I mean, I work at a dizzying pace. So it's for myself. But what I really like is I run into someone in the conference and I go, how you doing? They're like, oh man, I don't get any sleep. I ate something weird. I have a headache. I'm like, come to my room. And I just love like, I did it with Elliot's girlfriend, Bree, yesterday. She's like, oh, I didn't get much sleep. I feel run down. I said, all right, come here, come to the room. We sat her on the biomat and I hooked her up to the hydrogen and the NanoVi and all this crazy stuff. And I said, just give me 30 minutes. Just give me 30 minutes, and I want you to just open your mind, open your heart. This is all safe. None of this can hurt you. Just relax. Trust me. And she trusted me. She felt comfortable. And, 30 minutes later, she was a different woman. I mean, she came out of it, and we meditated. That's usually what I do. If somebody knows how to meditate, we'll run all that stuff, and then I say, all right, forget about all this crap now, and let's just meditate and just be with yourself or be with God and allow, these devices to assist your biology in coming back into balance. And it's just... I love seeing the before and after. Because afterward, I'm like, okay, how do you feel? How do you feel? On a 1 to 10, where were you? And she's like a 3, no energy, kind of anxiety, whatever. And then now she's like a 9. Oh my God, I feel reborn. It's like I get so much satisfaction out of that. It's such a fun thing to be able to do.
Yeah, this trade show's been really fun for that because it's a hard environment, the air quality and all the noise and the people and so on. I mean, no complaints, but it's kind of an intense environment for a lot of people, and they feel so much better after a session at our booth. And it's kind of nice because you feel like you can sort of reanimate these people and they can go back out and have more fun, learn more.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's one of the unique things about the NanoVi is it's quantifiable. Like you notice it, especially. And I don't think you're being negative or disparaging against this venue, but I mean, let's face it, like a corporate sort of hotel like this, I mean, this lighting is horrendous. The air is recycled. There's no natural light coming in at all. You're enclosed. I mean, it's a very domesticated, unnatural environment. And so I don't care how healthy you are. And these are probably some of the healthiest people in the world at this conference, but still, your biology knows that you've been sequestered from your natural environment and you're now a zoo animal in a cage.
Yeah.
And so that's, I'm all about like, all right, cool. I want to go to the conference. And I know that I'm going to have bad air and probably not optimal food in some cases, bad lighting. Just I'm doing things that are going to make me feel fatigued. So it's cool to be able to do that. So how did you meet Hans?
Through a friend that's also from Berlin who used to be my next door neighbor.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And you're from Vancouver?
I'm from Vancouver, but I was living in Seattle, as was Hans.
Oh, okay. Yes. It's weird. It seems like people in Vancouver and Seattle, it's almost interchangeable.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's a different country. How do you guys do that? It's like, people seem to just like jump over. I'm like, you can't do that in Tijuana and San Diego. It's like weird.
No, I just, I came to go to University of Washington, and I never left.
I see. That's cool. Yeah, I interviewed Danielle Laporte yesterday, and she's from Vancouver. Yeah, interesting. A lot of that happening here. And were you into, natural health and things like that when you're working in the tech industry, or did you just kind of get on board when you met Hans and this technology?
I was already paying attention to, especially to diet. So I'd always had organic food. I have 2 children, and I'd always paid attention to diet and exercise, and I meditated. but there wasn't sort of that. David Wolf was around. I remember getting his raw cacao beans and things, in the olden days, but there wasn't so much of that around.
Yeah.
But I'd say generally I was kind of following that approach.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of time out in nature, and also Hans has that in common with me, where he was in the backcountry all the time, hiking in the summer, snowboarding in the winter. He was.
You're a snowboarder?
Yep.
That's great.
He was.
Those of you watching, you can watch this video on YouTube, and I would never see Hans walking down the street and go, I bet that dude's a great snowboarder.
I think so.
That's cool. That's cool. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dig into. I want to get into the technology a bit, but I really want to unpack the water piece because, as I said, maybe it's because I'm a Scorpio, I don't know, but I'm like literally obsessed with water. It is the most fascinating substance in the world, and so I was into water and looking at the work of Victor Schauberger and different people and kind of getting a greater understanding that this mysterious thing that we think, oh, it's just this liquid thing that you can freeze, but it has 3 different ways that it can exist, right? It can be solid in the case of ice, it can be a vapor in the case of steam, and then it can be a liquid. And we kind of think like that's what water is, and I think a lot of people just think water is water. The water you get out of the tap's the same water. Maybe we think the only water that's different is water in the ocean. Because you can't drink it, right? Because of the salt.
Right, a little bit salty.
Yeah. But I think everyone's just like, oh, water's water, whatever. But I've always known since I started drinking out of springs that when I drink out of a spring, there's something different happening. When you get water out of a high altitude, like a really, there's different varying qualities of spring water, but high altitude, dense rock formation, really hard rock, not, soft limestone stuff, but like granite mountain, and you go 10,000 feet up and you drink water out of that spring, you light up. I mean, it's noticeable. And I was aware of that. And then you go and you buy like a Dasani water at the airport, and it's like, oh, this is not the same thing that I just got on the mountain while I was on that trip,
Yep.
So I started having this more intimate relationship and studying, guys like David Wolf and Daniel Vitalis and learning, oh, yeah, there's this niche of people into spring water. Then years go by, and I hear about this guy, Gerald Pollack, and started hearing him on some podcasts and stuff. I've not read his book, The Fourth Phase of Water, which I saw on your table. And then he's saying, hey, people, I've done some research, and there's another phase of water called the fourth phase of water. So, Hans, if you could kind of take us on a summarized version of what you've discovered along the way about water.
Oh, yeah. Number one, I did not discover it. Yeah. So what I can do is we came also from a little bit different side but we are very soon touching the water as a very important part. Like I said, background is material science. I'm more focused on the proteomic, on the proteins. And it was always interesting, why are these proteins? These are the workhorses in our body, in every living species. They are making everything. They are executing, they are stopping, they are running everything. But only when they're in their 3-dimensional shape. So how do they achieve this 3-dimensional shape?
And when you're talking about these proteins, is that like when I have a scoop of whey protein and I take that into my digestive system, does that then become those proteins you're talking about?
It depends what kind of product you take to you.
Oh, okay. So say I eat a steak.
If you eat a steak, what happens? It goes in your stomach, and you have enzymes, which are proteins in your stomach. They rip every proteins apart, what you eat there, because the essential part is a certain amount of amino acids that we need in our body to produce proteins. We cannot produce these by ourselves. We have to take this in by food. And our enzymes, they cannot read labels. They don't see what kind of protein name it comes in. It gets shredded. And only the important part of the amino acids that are necessary for our body are being then distributed all over the body. So they are sending the building blocks for our proteins into the cells. Now they are available there. And during the gene expression...
So these proteins are really small because they're able to get into the cell.
The amino acids are very small, and proteins are generally very small. When we think we can have several 10,000 of these proteins in one cell.
Wow, okay.
They
I'm
are
trying to
very
get a
small.
I'm very visual, so I'm like creating an infographic in my mind. Like, okay, here's a cell, then how big is one of these little proteins? For 10,000 of those to fit in a cell. You guys, I'm using hand signals here. On YouTube, you see that. But
yeah, and that is one of those problems because we don't know anything about it. We do not have technologies, microscope, who can see see these small little pieces.
Interesting.
Yeah? If you think, if is a room we are sitting in here, and think a shipping container is the size of our cell, and you have little tennis balls in there, yeah? And they are floating 1,000 tennis balls around it. There are big distances between the tennis balls, and you have to know with your specific microscope where the thing is to find it. And if you don't know where it is, you will never find it. And that is exactly the problem what we have in identifying those things. We assume that we have 900,000. We know only something about 30,000. So the majority is a black hole for us. Yeah? So even if we find out today that we have a certain disorder, we are not able to exactly find out which kind of proteins got damaged that causes disorder. We know only there's a whole group of proteins, or maybe only one that is not working, but we cannot address the specific, let's say, structure of this protein because we don't know this.
Is that due to the fact that they're so small we can't look at them and
Yes.
see how they've become deformed or?
Yes.
Or, yeah, interesting. And how do these proteins work in the body? Are they so these amino acids create these proteins, and then they're in your cell, and then your cells through the, and correct me where I'm wrong, I'm just trying to get a grip on this, then through your bloodstream these cells are delivered to all your various organs and everything around your body, and then they're going in and seeing where things need to be repaired and working on.
The cells
How does
don't
that
really.
work?
Yeah, the cells don't need to really be distributed to the bloodstream.
Oh,
they have their own cells. That's their own cell structure. So every
so
tissue.
do the cells, like, okay, the cells in a particular organ, let's just say the cells in my liver that contain 10,000 of these proteins, hopefully. Are they do those cells just stay in the liver and
Yes.
keep working there? So it's not like the cells cruise around and go different
No,
places.
they stay there, and they have a certain purpose,
Right.
and they have a certain content of proteins which are only in there.
Okay.
And heard something about stem cell. That is a cell that is actually able to become a specialized
Right.
cell, and then it stays, for example, only in the liver and will not do anything else. That is your liver cell.
So when I just had my stem cell treatment, I think I told you,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I emailed you, Rowena, right? And I was
Yeah.
like, what do I do? Oh yeah, and then I got my device right after, which is, thank you, by the way, for the fast shipping, because I really wanted to maximize that. So for example, when I got stem cell treatment, I got them injected in a number of places: my scalp, my face, my private parts, my right hip, my SI joint, my shoulder, anywhere where I have pain, or just I wanted to look prettier, So say I got a big syringe of those stem cells and exosomes, which is this other new kind of derivative of stem cells, as I understand it. I got those in my SI joint because that ligament appears to be injured, and that's where the majority of my pain's coming. So when those stem cells go in there, they're just like, I'm going to lock in that area wherever they were delivered.
Yes,
And
they
then
lock in.
express themselves in whatever signal they're getting from the body as a whole.
Right. The intention is that they learn from the neighboring cells to become these neighbors.
Cool.
So if you have a problem in cartilage, for example, you get these in there, and they have to learn to become cartilage cells.
Interesting.
That is a stem cell.
And the reason we expressed that device to you is that in combination with stem cell treatment, the NanoVi is just fantastic, including pre-treatment, which you missed out on. But the stem cells, once you have the injections, they can be the benefits of that can be in the system for quite a long time. And if you use the NanoVi device to help the whole system utilize that stem cell activity and support it so that more of them live, because of everything that's injected, there's only a certain percentage that survive. So if you can improve the environment for them so more of them take and do their job, then you've just made a lot bigger benefit out of your stem cell treatment.
Right.
And
That's
it can go on
interesting.
for months.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think I just reached out. I was like, hey, I'm doing this treatment with the NanoVi. Be supportive. And you're like, yes, definitely. Would have been ideal if you could do before, but definitely keep doing it forever afterward. But I didn't really know why. And that's interesting, because now that I've had the procedure and I'm online and I'm researching, like, okay, how do I maximize this? There are a lot of issues with many of them dying.
Yes.
And so, you go spend all this money, and, it's kind of painful. And so, it's a medical procedure, kind of a mini surgery. It's not fun. Not that big of a deal, but not fun. but I've seen people doing acupuncture and all sorts of different things to protect those, those very expensive, frankly, stem cells. They come out of you, but the process of getting them out and putting them back in is very expensive in most cases. I think it will become more affordable as the demand increases, of course. So that's helping support the system as a whole so that those cells that I got reintroduced to different places in my body have a hospitable environment, right, by which to flourish and to express themselves in whatever way is signaled by my body.
Yes.
That's interesting. So the cells around them are like, hey, we're rebuilding this cartilage right here. Come join the party. Okay, cool.
The cells are not traveling around. They stay locally and they do their stuff.
I always think about, like, if I'm taking a supplement, and it's like a nano emulsification or something, like a liposomal delivery, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm going to put it under my tongue. It's going to find some cells in there. Then those cells are going to take it somewhere else in my body and go do stuff. All right. This is great.
No, it would be nice if my leg muscles could move, the leg muscle cells could move in my arm cells, then I would have bigger arms.
That's funny.
They aren't.
Okay, so your early work, you're starting to look at these proteins and how these proteins tend to fold or collapse and essentially become inert and not usable by your body.
Yeah. The starting point was, like I said, we mentioned, folded protein. When they're in the three-dimensional shape, they are working and they are doing everything in our. They are responsible for our breathing. They are responsible for the oxygen transport. Hemoglobin, everybody knows it is a protein. It goes into the ATP. In the mitochondria, proteins control the ATP production.
Oh, I was going to ask that.
Yeah,
so now the big buzzword is mitochondria. Everyone's like eating and taking supplements to support their mitochondria. So these folded proteins are even smaller than the mitochondria?
Far smaller.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, far smaller.
Okay.
Yeah. Really far smaller.
Okay.
Yeah? So inside the protein.
I wish we had a chalkboard and we could make little shapes. 'Cause that's how I see it. I think. Do you guys in your you have a video on your site? I think it kind of shows that in sort of a drawing.
It's a three-dimensional animation.
Yeah, 3D animation.
Takes pretty much everything that we learn in high school in biology or in medical biophysics in the universities. Yeah, we try to put this in a short 3D.
So we'll put that in the show notes to go to your homepage. Is it n3corp.com?
Correct.
Okay, so ENG, the number 3corp.com, you guys. We'll put it in the show notes, but if you want to check it out, it's a really informative little sort of cartoon 3D animation thing that a kid would understand the mechanism of what's happening. Because when you read about it, to me, I'm like, what? It makes sense, but doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So, okay, so carry on.
Yeah. So the proteins working when they're three-dimensional. Unfortunately, these guys are getting constantly damaged. Yeah. And they have to be re-establishing their three-dimensional form, and that happens in the cells constantly, because we are producing so many free radicals per day that would wipe us out easily without any repair in a very short time. Yeah?
So these proteins can collapse, fold, and become,
Yeah, they collapse. They are a string. Now they are working not anymore. Now they have to get reinstalled again. Yeah?
So they can be brought back to life and reanimated, though.
Yes, you could say those things. Yeah, and that is a physical process. It's a thermodynamic process. Yeah, and that was where we're looking in. How is that be triggered? This kind of thermodynamic process, this change of entropy. It's another name, because it is not a chemical reaction. That is a physical reaction. That a physical process that happens very fast. And that is for all the proteins, even for all the unknown proteins, the same process. And the only reason or the only matter that these proteins are connected to is the water, where they are in the cellular water. And then we went deeper into the water science, what is out there, and then suddenly we saw all the water researchers who are working on researching water properties. And suddenly what they found in a very specific area of the research of water properties, and that's more around the Professor Pollack findings and other colleagues of him, that is the formation of the special stage on water's surface. And when the protein is embedded in the water, it creates a surface to the water, the so-called fourth phase. The fourth phase has a higher order because of certain effects to the water. The water has to get a higher order on its surface. And with the unordered protein that is surrounded by the high order, when enough of the high order is around the protein, the entropy change happens. Simply the protein flips, forms in its right shape, the order loses its water, and suddenly it is there and starts to work.
So in the sense, the term I use, like reanimating that folded protein that's kind of collapsed and just not doing its job anymore. So when we introduce this fourth phase of water, this ordered water, into the cell, for whatever reason, it's just like the creator made this weird thing happen when that form of water, that fourth phase of water, comes in contact with those folded proteins, it brings them back into the proper shape, which allows them to go do what they're supposed to do in the body.
So there's one little tweak, though, is that when they're not active and functional, they're unfolded, and then that process of forming the 3D structure is the folding. So they have to become folded.
So I got to get the terminology a little bit right.
It's just a switch. So they're not folded like collapsed, dead on the ground.
No.
And so, then once they fold, they're structured correctly, then they can function correctly. And then who knows what they do, all those interactions. It's part of the reason that biochemical solutions, we don't know what's really going to happen, and we have side effects and so on, because these proteins could have many different functions and interact and do a lot of things that we have no idea what they're doing.
That's why I love doing the show, because I find it so fascinating. Just this vehicle that we've been given. Our soul gets to enter into this little ball of fat in a woman's body, and we're like stuck in this goo for a few months, and then we pop out, and like, where does the body even come from? That's the weirdest thing. You eat food and it turns into bones and skin and hair and eyes, and you become this thing that's animated and walking around. But within that, there's just trillions of different things going on at every moment that you have no control over. That they're just happening. I mean, this is the discussion. Because to me, science is God. Like science, there's no difference in. Science and religion might be opposed in many cases, but science and spirituality to me are one thing.
Exactly.
And discussing these things for me is actually a spiritual exploration. Yeah. Because it validates the idea that there's a higher, use the word order for ordered water, there's a higher order, there's an unseen hand. I don't know what it is. I don't try to understand it. I tend to be happier when I acknowledge that something created all this, and there's you'll never be able to figure it all out.
You're right.
So, we barely like just touch the surface of, an ocean of data that's available to us. But it's very interesting to start to unpack it and really appreciate the body. I think that's my perspective, is like, wow, I want to know how. I'm so grateful that I was given this gift to be able to incarnate. Yeah. And I really want to learn how to take care of it and learn how it works so that I can have dominion over it and not be prey to all of this bad lighting and bad water and bad food and pollution and geoengineering and everything else that's counterproductive to your well-being.
Well, this brings two things to mind. The first is like Hans's comments about the stem cells and what you've just said, which is my belief that the body's capacity to repair is just unbelievable. And I don't think that, anything's impossible almost. I think we should hold on to that thought that it really, regardless of what some people might say and conventional thinking might suggest, you just cannot underestimate the body's ability to repair. And then second thing related to that is all the complexity is that's one of the reasons that I see what we're doing as being sort of a direction in the future, because we don't control all the interactions. It's far too complex for us to understand. Therefore, if you do something through biophysics like what we're doing, there's no potential for harm. So you just are supporting the water in the body, and the body does all the rest. Let it do its magic. Let it be brilliant and repair and recover. And you don't have the possibility to, put something in that does something bad over there, or, has, endless side effects or whatever. And so I think that's part of that whole miracle of how everything works and how complicated it is we have to start addressing health with that mindset, that we're not going to override it. We need to work with it.
I agree. Yeah. The first sort of health teacher that I got into was this guy named Dr. Richard Schultz, and his motto was he's got a company called American Botanical Pharmacy, and those are really the first herbs and things like that. They're all like wild crafted, really great, high quality, mostly American herbs. And his whole thing was, if you have a degenerative disease, if you're sick, if you're injured, all you have to do to heal is stop doing whatever it is that made you sick. And the body heals itself. You have to just give the body the resources, the building blocks for what it needs. In this case, would be, allowing those proteins to express themselves in a way that's regenerative, But I really believe in that perspective, and I can't stand the term incurable disease. I really don't believe in that.
No.
I don't believe in that. Because just to take a knife right now. Don't do this at home, listeners. Cut your arm with a freaking knife, disinfect it. Okay, don't let it get infected. And just, if you could do time-lapse photography for a week and just watch what happens. We're like the freaking Terminator. Reanimation. I mean, where does that skin, the new skin comes from? Yeah. Your body's like, oh, we need some more flesh there. Here, we'll just put some there. And it just repairs itself. It's like science fiction. Yeah. And I believe that your whole body can do that.
Yeah.
If it's given the right tools.
And you do not have to wait until you have the disease. Yeah?
Right.
Start early enough. Yeah, that is why we are here on this conference and have a talk with you. Here's more everything related to prevention. Yeah, do it early enough. Yeah, and back to the damaging cycle. Now, why are these proteins getting damaged in our cells, and we're taking so much strong work on it to repair it? Yeah, because we put demand on our body. Yeah, it is not only demand because I'm running fast and build muscles. Yeah, thinking is a demand. Yeah, we started this interview that the people are getting tired. Yeah, we put a lot of demand every day, 13 hours running, listening, talking, interacting with others. We are running a marathon with our brain. Yeah, we are should not be surprised that we are tired at the evening. Yeah. But whenever we run a marathon in our brain, we are basically have to produce ATP to do this performance, and that means we are producing oxidative stress and free radicals, which are damaging the proteins in this area.
Okay.
And now we lose the function.
So just living life creates what you're calling oxidative stress. Just talking to a bunch of people, noise, traffic, pollution,
just
toxins
breathing.
In the
breathing. You just have to breathe.
That sucks. Yeah. All you have to do is live, and you're killing yourself. Basically, right? From the moment you're born, you begin to die, and that's the great irony. And I love to think about it that way, and not get too attached to this one particular incarnation. Yeah. Let's face it, like we're all. People that see me really into the house are like, dude, you're gonna die anyway. What's the big deal? I'm like, I'm not trying to live longer. I'm trying to live better.
Yeah.
That's
quality.
Yes.
I'll die tomorrow if that's what, nature has in store for me. That's cool. I hope not. But I just don't want to be one of these old men crossing the street with the hunchback and, just decrepit, being trapped in a human body. And I've had times in my life where I felt like that. Even now I have a lot of pain in my body still. I'm working on it, but it's like, God, it's a pain in the ass, literally, to be in this body. Get me out of here some days. I'm like, God, what is it like when you're just spirit? This is my belief. I wonder what that's like when you're not embodied. It must be pretty cool because nothing hurts.
Oh, boring.
But then you can't go swimming or pet a dog or do the things that we enjoy, dancing. Things we enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So let's get back to. I want to dig a little bit deeper into the oxidative stress, because that's. When people ask me about this device or the hydrogen, they go, what does it do, Luke? I'm not a sciencey guy. I've looked at the white papers. I look at the studies. I'm convinced it works. That's all I need to know. And then I sort of discard that information because I don't have a use for it. But what I always say, to sound smart, is like, oh, it eliminates oxidative stress. If someone asked me the next question, what is that? I'd be like, I don't know. It's bad for you.
Yeah.
So what is oxidative stress?
Yeah. Back to your first sentence, it's eliminating the oxidative stress damage.
Okay.
Oxidative stress is something that we can only eliminate with our lifestyle.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. It depends about the amount of oxygen that we are metabolizing. That means how much do we breathe in? If we run a marathon, we breathe 100 times more than a normal person. We create more oxidative stress. If we perform higher with our brain will create more oxidative stress. If we have more impact, environmental impact, unavoidable impact, where we getting distracted, we have to listen because there's a lot of people around it. That puts a lot of demand on our autonomic nerve system. We have to pay concentration and those things. Creates oxidative stress because these are chemical reactions and they demand ATP. ATP creates free radical, and these free radicals are completely connected with the term of oxidative stress, are very aggressive and combining and therefore then killing or damaging every part that they can find within the cell. The second most abundant molecule after the water molecules in the cells are the proteins. So they are the most exposed particles in the cell for the damages, and they get the hit. Always they get the hit.
I see.
And if the hit is nicely equally distributed all over body, the amount of hit is called aging. We are losing function. Certain things are not working anymore. And then we have at the end me as an old man sitting on the porch and cannot really listen to you anymore, cannot see anymore, fall asleep instead of being awake and those things, because I lost the function to function. These millions of little proteins lost their function to do my function in life. That is aging. If that hits in a certain area in our protein area, then we could get a chronic disease. It's nothing else than loss of protein function. Certain things is not controlled how it should be anymore. Let's say inflammation is not turned off. That leads to chronic inflammation. Or the inflammation is not turned on by proteins. That is always done. Then you do not get an inflammation, which is really bad. You cannot heal. So there are a lot of different things which are over the years accumulating the damages. The body learns in the beginning to build this special layer around the proteins, this ordered water, so that they can be reawakened, reinstalled and working. But over the huge amount of damage that we are exposing consciously and unconsciously to our body, we are accumulating more damage. And the reservoir, or not the reservoir, but the amount that the body can create this, special layers of water is limited. We can only create a certain amount, and that is basically why we are aging and we cannot keep up with the repair. And that is now where the NanoVi technology comes in. We are creating exactly the same kind of layers of water on little water droplets, deliver it to the body in the humidity via the humidity and add to the body's reservoir. And now protein functions are being hopefully reinstalled, and very often you can recognize it because of things like your concentration is getting better, your awareness is being, you feel, oh, I'm awake, what you should be during the day. Other people say, oh, I had a great sleep, right. What you should have when you lay in bed. Right. These are protein-controlled function, your sleep. I mean, the proteins tell you you're horizontal, your hearing is down, your eye recognition has to go down when you lay horizontal down, and when that all is done, then you sleep. During the same time, the parasympathetic system says, now start the digestion. That is a very energy-intensive process. You digest when you in the parasympathetic system. You do not digest when you run a marathon. Then you use your muscles. You look straight forward. You're concentrated in this one. So these are the different things. They are all protein-controlled. And we are trying to reinstall with this technology, help this. Depending on your individual situation, it is possible to recognize it. It is usually, I said usually, always it is measurable if you have the right diagnosis tools, that we have the impact on the body. And then it depends on your already existing state of damages, if we can improve it in a good way, how you want it, or if we only can keep you in the position where you are right now.
Yeah, it's interesting when you use the NanoVi. I try to explain. You'd be like, what does it feel like? What does it do? Because it looks really cool. I mean, it's like this bubbling little water tank and, this hose. I mean, it's a strange looking device. It looks cool. It looks like kind of a medical grade bong. Sorry, I had to take it there. But people go, what does it do? I go, it does it. It's weird because it gives you energy, but it's not it's not coffee energy. It's not stimulating. It's just, you actually just feel more like yourself. I guess maybe it sort of feels like you just lay down and rested, and then you kind of get up and you feel it's just refreshing. But you just feel like more of yourself. And so one of the main things that I use it for is I keep it in my car when I'm going on any drive, like longer than, the LA traffic. I mean, you can go like freaking 5 miles and it takes you an hour. And I get really fatigued when I drive. I don't know if it's the EMFs or what, but like driving is not my friend, and I do a lot of it. So I drive around with the what is it called, a cannula?
Yeah.
Nasal cannula.
Nasal cannula, and I'm huffing the NanoVi as I cruise around. The other day I went out to Venice and went to the beach. And people look at me weird when I'm in the car. They think I have oxygen or something. And I went into the beach to the little parking booth to get my ticket. And she looked in the car. She said, "Oh, sweetie, you should get a handicap placard. You don't have to pay for parking. Do you have the placard?" I was like, "No, that's a good idea." That would be unethical, to take the spot of a truly disabled person. But yeah, it's funny. I was like, "Oh yeah, this looks kind of weird." I forget some of the crap that I do is not normal.
That's fun.
So were you going to say something?
Well, no. Actually, I was thinking of something earlier though that Hans was talking about, that the line of defense is to repair all the damage that gets done. But just to kind of connect the dots for people, the body's first line of defense is the antioxidant defense, and the antioxidants are produced, like the proteins, by the body. And again, we tried to supplement them by taking antioxidants that will then supplement our antioxidant capacity. And so really there's that first phase, the free radicals formed. It could be neutralized by an antioxidant, or it could do damage. And where the NanoVi really shines is cleaning up the damage. And so with the use of the antioxidants, that's how the body mitigates some of the initial damage from oxidative stress, which can be, of course, all the other toxins or bad food or radiation from the sun, all kinds of places.
Right.
That you can get that oxidative damage.
That's interesting. Yeah. So connecting those words, the antioxidant is like essentially antioxidation.
Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Exactly.
And these are like the rich pigmented foods and coffee and chocolate and blueberries and things like that. Right.
Right.
Anything that you can put in the cell that's a free radical can grab instead of a protein is an antioxidant.
Oh, okay. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Give them enough scavenger molecules that hopefully will protect to get damage
That's
to
cool.
good.
I'm starting to get a sense for that. So I know that the hydrogen is obviously not your area of expertise, but I've been really into the molecular hydrogen, and I did an interview about that. I mean, like an hour and a half just about hydrogen. We really geeked out with Tyler LeBaron. For those of you that want to go back in the feed, I forget the number. Just Google Luke Storey hydrogen, and we'll put it in the show notes. But it was fascinating. So I got one of these devices. First, I started taking the tablets, and they are effervescent. You put them in water. They make like 13 parts. Vital Reaction is the brand that I like. It makes 13 parts per million of hydrogen gas suspended in water. And it maintains that concentration for up to 30 minutes. I drink it within the first 5 minutes, and it's like, whoa, just thinking gets clearer, brain fog goes down, it's noticeable. And then I got the inhaler, and you get on that thing for 15, it depends on mine's 7%, which is the highest one they sell, because it becomes flammable when you get higher. And I don't care. I'm like, I'd be willing to take the hit. I'm like, give me the 20%. I don't care about fire. But after you get on that thing, I mean, it's different than the NanoVi. It's like, it makes your mind really sharp. And then it makes your vision very clear. Because I get a little blurry far away, a little myopia going on, And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I can read that book across my living room on the shelf that I can never read after a hydrogen thing. And then later on it goes back to illegible. Colors become brighter. It's a very interesting, subtle, but interesting experience. And
I have to try it.
It's cool. I have one in my room. And
There we go.
I could bring it out to your booth if you want. I mean, I guess it's kind of competition. Maybe you want to come.
No.
Yeah.
That is the other good thing. We do not have competition.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it's a totally different device. I'm just like, if you're selling a device, you don't want people to go, what's that thing? I want that. We can bring it up here. But as I understand the hydrogen's mechanism of action is it's this extremely powerful antioxidant.
Right.
And it's scavenging free radicals, like, a zillion times a bowl of blueberries or whatever.
Yeah, that is good.
And it's also a really tiny molecule.
Right.
When you look at a hydrogen molecule compared to another antioxidant like CoQ10 or vitamin C or something like that, I mean, they're huge. And then the hydrogen's this tiny, tiny little speck, way smaller.
You only have to put it right in front of the free radical.
Okay. And then the free radical gravitates toward that and gets...
No, it does not gravitate. The free radical is a very mindless molecule or atom. Yeah, it grabs the next thing that it can find.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It is pretty dark in the cell. Yeah, and all these reactions are extremely fast. These are nanoseconds. Yeah, they are getting produced. They are highly reactive. Yeah, and whatever is there, they combine with, and usually the molecule they combine it is getting damaged. Yeah? It is not itself anymore. Yeah?
So if we're introducing these tiny little molecule of hydrogen into the cell, the free radical just like boink, boink, and it just bounces off of that in a millisecond and gets swallowed up, essentially.
Less than a millisecond.
Right.
Less than a millisecond.
Right. Less than a millisecond. Yeah.
And is that processes? Can you watch that on any kind of high-powered microscope?
No,
it's
we
too
do
fast.
not
It's all
have-
too
it's
fast and too small.
Yeah.
So it's like faster than the speed of light kind of thing, where you couldn't even, maybe not that fast, but
Not-
too fast for us to perceive with our vision. In
Yeah.
other words.
With the very small things, you have always a problem to focus in the right location to see it.
I
Yeah?
see.
If you are a little bit beside it, you don't see it anymore. Yeah? And if this reaction happens not right in the focus, you will never see it.
Right.
Even if you have a very fast recording microscope.
Okay.
That is a little bit the problem.
So I just want to clearly understand oxidative stress, because as I said, I kind of fake my way around this question. And even inflammation, sometimes you're like, what is it? I go, I don't know, it's bad. You're swollen, I don't know. It's just, you want to avoid inflammation. If you hurt, you're inflamed. That's my definition of it. Oxidative stress, I think of as, say you have metal that gets rusty. It's becoming oxidized. So is that a similar mechanism of what's happening when cells in your body become oxidized?
Yeah, you could say that is a good analogy.
And how does it relate to oxygen? Is it even related?
It is completely related.
Okay.
Oxygen combines with other molecules. Oxygen is highly reactive, especially the free radical, because it's only one atom. Yeah, the atom doesn't want to stay alone, cannot stay alone. It has to combine with something else.
Okay.
And take a steel beam, get rusty and rusty and rusty. At the end, you cannot put any load on it more. Yeah, the steel beam will not do its function anymore. It falls apart, and that happens with any other material too. Yeah? So the antioxidant connects with the free radical, and the body will find a way to get rid of it, get out of it. If the free radical connects with the protein is damaged. You have to buy either a completely new one, or you have to repair this protein. Then that is a completely different other thing. So the oxidative stress is constantly created in the cells by the mitochondria as a byproduct from the ATP production. Like a car that you like to put the gas in, but unavoidable you produce exhaust.
It's like the exhaust. Okay, that totally makes sense. So there's this energy being produced, and whenever energy is being produced, there's a byproduct of that energy production, essentially.
Yes.
Cool.
And since the mitochondria is the engine and it's creating the exhaust, there's a lot
Is
of...
the mitochondria then the engine that creates ATP?
Yes.
That gives you cellular energy?
Yes.
Okay.
And so then a lot of the damage can happen to the mitochondria because the reactions are right there. And that's why by using the NanoVi, if you repair that damage faster and more effectively, then you feel more energy. You've got the mitochondria is functioning better for you. And that's where you notice the alertness, or somebody that's fatigued, it's like a pick-me-up because of the better mitochondrial function.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, because I just drove to San Jose to do this Tony Robbins event, and I had the NanoVi going. I mean, I would take a break for like an hour, and then I put it on for an hour, and basically like every other hour I'm on that thing. And I'm just like, totally alert. Normally I would be so tired by the time I get there.
Did he have his NanoVi there?
Oh, he has one?
Yeah, but he didn't have it there, did he? You have to tell
funny.
him.
That's funny. Oh my God. Yeah, it's when he was talking, he dropped in little like, oh, I do this. Like, this guy's on everything that I'm doing. We're on this parallel universe.
And he didn't mention us?
He mentioned the rebounder, because he's a big rebounder. That's a very primitive technology.
I mean, I use one all the time.
And ice baths. He talked about pranic healing, something I was doing many years ago. Just everything he touched on, I was like, oh, I do that. I'm good. I'm good to go. But no, and sadly, he did not mention it. But someday I will interview him and we will mention it together.
But back to the chronic, to the bad, to the free radicals.
Yeah.
Like you pointed out more that oxidative stress is bad and the free radical are the bad guy. Yeah?
Right.
We have to put a little bit other importantness to these free radicals.
Okay.
They are important. They have a very important task in our bodies. Yeah, and if we wouldn't have free radicals in our body, we would not survive any infection and all these things, because these free radicals are very aggressive, and our body is using their aggressiveness in a lot of beneficial ways. So whenever we have a splinter or a cut, the inflammation is caused by free radicals, and that is basically a protection shield.
Oh.
It is whenever you have a virus, bacteria such as coming in there, the free radicals will kill this, will take care at this area to avoid bigger damages. Yeah.
That's interesting. So in the example of when I said you cut your arm and then magically these, these forces in your body start to coalesce and create this healing miracle of sorts, that's part of the process.
Yeah, if you have a transplantation, you get a high doses of antioxidants in this area, because otherwise your product would reject the transplant.
Oh, wow.
So it's so strong that it rejects those things. You get a high doses of antioxidants. They are a protection shield.
Cool.
So it is not a bad thing, these free radicals. Right. And if you think about it, they are responsible for the apoptosis, for the cell death, for the cellular suicide. We constantly have somewhere little areas of cancer in our body, and the apoptosis is a biological process that turns the cell function off, kills the cell, and said, you are so damaged, you turn into cancer cells, we replace you. That is done by free radicals. Wow. So if you do not have free radicals, you can have a lot of other problems.
Interesting. And how much of the cell is made of water?
99% of the molecules in the cells are water, and in our body, 99%. Wow. From the weight, we are 99% weight-wise, 95% water.
So this, and I'm my audience is like, okay, we get it, because as I said, I did so much content recently on water, but fundamentally, I just feel that, like, in a lifestyle practice, in being healthy, that water is literally, aside from oxygen, after oxygen, the water that you're drinking is like the first thing you got to hack. Like, that's the number one supplement in the world, is getting good water. And the way that I've always thought about it is like, I don't know how the percentage of my cells, but I'm like, okay, I'm basically made of cells. Those cells are mostly made of water, plasma, blood, lymph. Every bodily fluid that you have obviously didn't just generate out of thin air. It came from the water that you ingested, right?
Yep.
So do I want a body and essentially blood and cells that are made of, like, Orange County, California municipal tap water?
Your body also has filtration systems, right? So if you're healthy, it's not like that bad
I picture
water.
my cell as just like gushing full of tap water. It's like, oh my God.
No, because you also have really good ways to eliminate things that shouldn't be there and all that.
All right.
Yeah, you're touching a very interesting thing. We are made out of water, but that also goes a little bit more to the beginning of our talk. What kind of waters are out there? There are many different waters.
Right.
And there's one very clear separation in water science. And that is, one is bulk water. A cup of water, a bucket of water, has completely different other properties than the water that is in the cloud, in the mist, is in small containers, you could say, small little droplets. Different attributes, different physics, behaviors. And when we talk about us as humans, we are actually not a bucket of water. We are a cloud. Our cells are little containers, and we are similar. We have to apply the knowledge that we have about clouds a little bit more to us.
Wow, because I'm looking at us as a walking fish tank. Right?
Yeah,
so
most of the people do this,
So you're saying maybe, or another word for clouds, are we in a sense like an encased steam room, like a walking steam room?
Depends on the heat you are in.
Okay.
How hot are you, Luke?
Okay, right. Okay. So we'll go with cloud, okay?
Yeah.
He's turning red.
It's funny, yeah. Wow, no, this is cool stuff. So
back to the water science, not that we are running out of water. We are not interested with our concentration in the science. What is water doing in a bigger container? And very often we see overlapping terminologies, but that's only because we do not have enough different terminologies.
Right.
We're talking about structured water. The structured water that we talk, for example, in a glass of water is something completely different what we are doing.
Right.
We are concentrated only what is going on the surface, on the so-called exclusion zone, on the surface of water. So the surface in the cell is not only the surface that is around the cell, that is all the surface to the components within the cell. So every protein in the cell has a surface to the water. And the interaction of these surfaces, that is what we implement in our knowledge to create this product, what we implemented in the patent for this product, so that we can utilize this one and then hopefully to deliver the humidity to the cloud that we are to have then the benefit from it.
Right. And as you were explaining to me yesterday, because I was like, okay, so I'm breathing in this very fine mist, which is interesting because it's not even wet. It's not like a...
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it feels dry when you breathe in the NanoVi, water vapor. But I was saying, so it goes in your nose through your mucous membrane and then gets into your blood. And you're like, no, it doesn't go into your blood. It just becomes the water of your body because your body's just full of water and it just joins the rest of the water. Is that how it works?
Yes. We only have to transfer this kind of properties of the water to the property of your body. Your blood is water, basically, red water. Mainly made of water molecules, your blood.
Right.
There are a couple particles in there, they reflect the light in a situation that it looks red. That's the only thing. But basically the component is blood, with some more components in there that we can measure for blood analysis.
Right.
But the majority is still blood. So it will get affected. And the components which are in the blood are being affected through our treatment.
How does pH affect easy water? Does it have a specific pH or does it depend on the root water?
It depends on the root water. You cannot really say that has a specific pH. It depends. That is more. Say you change from the source water into a different water that is on the surface into the easy exclusion zone water. So easy doesn't mean light or simple. Easy means exclusion zone.
The letters E and Z. Yes.
And that has a different pH value than the source water.
Oh, okay.
It has a different polarity. It's negative. It has a different density. It has a different spectral analysis. It has a different absorption rate. So you can really make the analytics if you have easy water in front of you or not. And that is something awesome. We don't only have a patent for it, we also tested at every stage in this one. And we have a proof that out of our device comes the easy water, or better, the humidity containers, the little humidity droplets with easy water around it. So that should be always measurable, such a claim.
And so you patented the device that creates that very specific form of water. Do you foresee any point in the future, and would this even be good to use that technology to make a jar of water that you could drink that's all easy water?
No. Again, it's a different thing. The jar of water is something different than we are.
Okay.
And the easy water builds on its surfaces. So it doesn't matter how big the container is, it matters only how big is the
so
whole thing.
Just in theory, say I have a glass of exclusion zone water, the bulk of that body of water within the glass is just whatever water it is, but the surface of it is the easy water.
Yes.
So that's why you can't make like a jug of easy water, because it would still only be the surface.
Right.
Be the cloud, Luke.
Be the cloud.
Be the cloud.
Okay. I have this fantasy that like I can find easy water out of the spring in the Himalayas, and it'll be the fountain of youth.
No. The other thing is easy water can only exist if the other normal water is there. You cannot harvest easy water.
So in a sense, you can't exclude exclusion zone water.
No, that is not possible.
You can't make easy water.
No. You cannot create easy water, scrap it off the surface and put it in a bottle. That's not possible.
And as Gerald Pollack describes it, this exclusion zone water, this fourth phase, he describes it as a gel.
Yes.
How does that work?
Yeah. The exclusion zone water is created through an energy transfer into the water. One of those possibilities, the most known and common possibilities, is a very specific electromagnetic energy. It has to be absorbable by the water. What happens is the electromagnetic energy hits a water molecule. The water molecule starts to vibrate, and the neighboring water molecules are connected through the hydrogen bonds, like a little spider network. And when you hit on one end of the network, the entire spiderweb starts to vibrate. So in this vibration, like shoulder and shoulder hitting a little bit, goes to the surface, to the border, to the edge of the water container or the water vessel. And the molecules there, they cannot move. They don't have a neighbor. The only possibility what they have is to move closer together. And they change their order. They get in a higher order. They are now staying better side by side.
I see. So that's where the term ordered water comes from.
Right.
It's literally like they have an order. They're not just randomly.
Right.
They're much closer.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that leads to denser water. Now you have a gel.
Okay. Okay. Right. Because they're ordered and closer together and creating more
density. They're packed in there.
Yeah, they are packed in there. But also this order, this denser order, creates a lot of other property changes.
Right.
Yeah. And you know this from other material heat treatments. You can change material properties.
Right.
And that is what the water is doing when it is exposed to certain electromagnetic energies. It changes its property. And that is why we live, because water has the ability to absorb this energy, do something to the surface that will affect the proteins. So very often then people come and say, where is this energy, electromagnetic energy coming from? Usually we produce this in the cells. Usually, and that's a very surprise for a lot of people, that is produced by a free radical.
Oh, wow.
That is produced by a so-called activated oxygen. Oxygen doesn't want to be activated. It has to emit its fingerprint of the electromagnetic signal, and that is an absorbable, for water, absorbable electromagnetic energy. So the water harvests from the activated oxygen, from the specific free radical, the energy to build the exclusion zone on the water that is then used by the proteins to fold.
Wow.
No chemical reaction. That is all pure physics.
When you were starting that's the interesting thing about this technology too. Is it's not a supplement. It's not like creating something different, introducing something foreign to the body, right? It's something that the body has going on anyway, right? When you were coming up with this technology and you were having your Edison, experience of doing different iterations and prototypes, how much trial and error was involved when you had the idea, like, oh, hey, maybe I could find a way to introduce this substance into the body to support health. How long did it take? How difficult was it? How many frustrating fails did you have where you spent a bunch of money making a prototype and it didn't do the thing? And as an inventor, kind of, perspective,
we are working since 10 years on. We started 10 years ago with it. 15 years before, there were so many things out there already in other areas where they recognized things. What happens to it when they experiment with activated oxygen in certain areas. Even in certain kind of chemotherapy treatments, they recognize that, wow, there happen some very beneficial things on the site. What has it to do? And they drilled a deeper hole and they found out the activated oxygen has something very beneficial there. What is the mechanisms behind it? And so I try to be as broad, having things on the radar, put things together, understand this pattern, what is going on there. That then led me to the water science. And then you read the books, you get the education, you get together with the scientists, you meet Professor Pollack and all these other colleagues. You find out what are these basic building blocks in it, and then you put it together. For us, it was not important to do the scientific part. That is done at the universities. We are more the part to turn this into a handable, usable, easy affordable product that fulfills the requirement with those things. We are an FDA registered product that fulfills the requirement, easy use, and hopefully then can be available for a lot of people. So we are more in then doing clinical studies, showing the impact before and after, doing placebo-controlled studies. That is far more the work than finding out if I'm on the right path. If I have to start and something is not known that is the right path, then it's too early to do this. So we simply took the science that is out there, that is validated by many other universities, for example, and we applied in the technology. The application in to apply it in technology, that is then the harder part. Find the right components. 20 years ago, it was not possible to have those technologies because the components that are today available on the markets were not available during this time. So that is a lot of things. So we only have products today because we have the components available. We can dream about products, but the components are not there to build those products.
So you mentioned the accessibility and affordability, and this would be, in terms of medical devices, affordable if I had a clinic or something like that. Like I'm investing in all sorts of machines that are $50,000, $150,000 and things like that. So a device that runs, like you guys are between like $5,000 and $12,000 or something like that?
Yeah, 5 and 13.
5 up to 13. And that, as for a medical device, if I have a clinic or something like that, it's just cool. I'm investing and I'm going to charge people per use, right? So cool. My ROI is good. But for someone who wants to, who has some physical issues that they're trying to overcome, or someone like myself, I don't really have any particular issues, but I just want to make sure that I don't get them, as you said earlier. Even something that starts at $5,000 is a lot of money, So what is it about devices like this that make it that expensive, and why isn't it $800 or something? Is it the components that you need to buy, these things that were previously unavailable, the actual parts that you make this, or is it the manufacturing? What part makes it $5,000 or $13,000 and not a few hundred or something?
Well, it's largely there's a lot of custom work in it, so it's not because of the technology itself. The parts have to be manufactured specifically for the device. So a lot of what is inside, and also you can see on the outside that those parts are not what you just buy.
It's not from Home
shelf.
Depot.
Right.
No, definitely
it's not.
But also, I would argue that it is really designed, if anybody didn't notice, Hans is German, and it was German engineered. The thing will last forever. I mean, it's just built with a tremendous lifespan.
In America, we call that a brick shit house.
Yes. But that's not the typical thinking often. It's some things are designed to fail. And so you think, I'm only going to use this.
Like Apple products? Planned obsolescence?
Right. Or
I'm familiar.
Cars and so then you think, well, the lifespan of this is, 5 years, 6 years, whatever. Whereas with this device, you have to amortize it over a very, very long period of time.
Right.
And then it becomes really inexpensive for the user. And if you have multiple users, it's a very inexpensive intervention, because it doesn't matter if you have 10 people using it a day, you're not going to wear it out.
Right.
So then you have, you can treat all those different people with the same basic cost, and the only thing the device needs is the distilled water, which is really.
I really appreciate. I like. I've been driving BMWs for a long time. I'm really into German engineering. I really, I'm not trying to be fancy. I mean, maybe a little bit, but I just like the way they drive. Like, I've never had a car that drives as well as a BMW. To my preference, it's just my favorite car. So I really like good design, and I like shit that lasts. Just anything I buy, I've always been that way since I was a kid. I'm going to buy one that's 4 times as expensive, so I only have to buy it once.
Yes.
Instead of buying the cheap one. Even when I go to Target and I need a vacuum cleaner, and they have the one that's the fancy Italian one that's $400, and then the one that's $49.99. I'm going for the expensive one just because I don't want to have to replace it every year.
Exactly.
So I appreciate that point of view, and also from the perspective of, as you said, being able to treat multiple people. Like if you had a family, in my case, I don't have yet a family, but I do have a lot of wacky friends, like my buddy Elliot here. And since I've gotten a hold of more of these devices over the past couple of years, since I've had the podcast and stuff, because it's sort of part of my business now, my house is full of people all the time now. I'm like, wow, it's funny. All of a sudden I have all these friends, but it's really wonderful to be able to have them come over, and I don't feel like, oh man, I don't know, can I use your NanoVi? I'm like, I might only have a few uses left before it falls apart. Like, I get the sense that, yeah, I can have 100 people in there a day, like we're fine.
Yes.
Don't worry about
Yeah,
it.
and
Yes.
you use it while you're on the road. Yeah, you're not the
Yeah.
only one. Yeah, this thing is designed. We have a lot of professional sports team, all those things. They are traveling with this device that is getting in the transportation case, thrown in the plane, thrown in the
Right.
train, and all those things. It has to last. They want that it works on the other side,
Yeah.
and not replacing something.
One thing that I thought was, two things I thought were very thoughtful in the design. One is that you can change the color of the light and not have it be blue. A lot of these devices, like God bless Amp Coil, I have it over there, and I love that device, and they're $7,500. I mean, it's no joke. It's an investment, but again, it's also built to last. It's a very sturdy piece of equipment, but it emits a crazy amount of blue light.
Oh.
And I even talked to the owner, and he's like, "What, man? It looks pretty. It's cool. It's got a vibe." I go, "No, you haven't heard about the blue light thing?" He's like, "What? No,
You
know."
want red light. Put it on red light.
Yeah, and so the NanoVi is cool because you can change the color of light, and I just keep it on red all the time, and it's really nice at night. So I'm not getting, not killing my melatonin by having these health supportive devices going. So that was one thing I thought was really cool. The other thing is in the case, which is an optional thing in the road case, there's a little empty jar, and then there's the jar where your distilled water goes. So when you travel, you can keep your distilled water with you in the case. I was like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Because it's a hassle to, I got to go to the drugstore and find some distilled water when I arrive at my destination. So it's very much self-contained, which is cool too.
Yeah.
Good when you use a car. Always a reminder, if you use it in a plane, do not leave the water in there.
If you carry it on.
It's a carry-on.
If you carry on.
that's right.
But you can put it through checked luggage.
Right. So I couldn't. Oh, that's funny. So I couldn't use it on the plane because I don't bring the amp coil on the plane because I carry it on, but I don't use it. But I use I have this PMF device called an Earth Pulse. I plug that thing in. I have my Bioman. I have all kinds of biohacking devices that I literally use on the plane. But they're a bit smaller, But I was thinking, I was like, I wonder if I could put the NanoVi in front of my seat and run that every hour or something. But yeah, no, the water. Because they're not going to have distilled water on the plane. Okay, now I know.
No, and they don't want that you have a jar of water going through the security.
That dream is over. Okay, good.
But therefore it's solid. You can check it in.
Yeah.
And they can bounce it around as long as they want.
Sure.
And you will have
Really?
all the
You
other.
can check it in and they can throw it around like that
Yep,
and it'll be
it's
fine?
solid built. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Like
Because
you
I would
said.
be nervous to do that. I've never checked in the amp coil, and it's the same kind of Pelican case, all padded, very sturdy, but I'm like, I see those guys, when you look out the window, they're like, just chucking the bags on the conveyor belt.
We've never had one damaged on the plane,
Cool.
but it's not that it couldn't be. And a lot of people are like, no, I'm just keeping it with me.
Oh.
And then they just put a good sturdy container of distilled water in their luggage.
Sure.
And so you have it at the other end because you don't want to go shopping for distilled water.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so
It has to be sturdy. Yeah, we are producing these devices in
Right.
Seattle, and we are shipping it all over the world. Yeah,
Right.
so when we send it with whatever transportation company to Europe, they are not. They don't care what is in there. Yeah? It is your chest high. They drop it. Yeah?
Right,
and it
right.
has to survive to the other side.
Right.
Yeah?
Before we we're about out of time, but before we come to a close, I'd like to hear about, if you could kind of briefly summarize some of the studies that have been done and the results of whatever studies have been done, what that looks like before and after, and then also some of the typical people that are using this device. You mentioned some professional sports teams. I know some race car drivers are using it. So give me some of the background on who's using it and what's come about in the studies.
Sure. Well, the studies, one thing we talked about earlier was inflammation.
Yeah.
And I have to make a case for the good inflammation, which Hans mentioned is what keeps you alive.
Right.
So there's good inflammation, the acute or productive inflammation, and there's also the chronic inflammation, which is very bad, and you want to get rid of that. And we've had the acute inflammation studied and shown that that the immune system's upregulated by the device. And the study was done in a crossover, double-blind, placebo-controlled study. So the same athlete was tested with or without the NanoVi, and they could show that it was improving, and there was only one NanoVi session that was studied, and it was a difference in various blood components that are markers for the immune system. It was between 10 and 17% improvement in those inflammatory markers. So basically,
That's crazy.
those athletes were kicking in a much stronger immune response than when the same athlete did the same exertion test without the NanoVi.
That's insane, because typically to get a result like that, you'd think that you'd have to use whatever modality for a long period of time, multiple uses to achieve that
Correct.
result. Wow.
Correct. And so that was a very big one. And the blood lactate was 17% less blood lactate in the athletes.
Is that lactic acid, the thing that makes you sore?
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
And then, so those were the kind of their university studies, and they're done double-blind placebo control, which is very important.
Do you guys, as owners of the company, do you have to fund those studies yourself?
We actually don't have to. We've had them studied. There's enough interest in it. So our studies are actually independent in that they're not producing what we pay them to produce.
Yeah, well, that's good because
good.
that adds to the validity of the studies. If you're not like, hey, here's a couple bucks under the table, give us the result we want.
Exactly,
which goes on a lot
kind
in
of suspect.
In big pharma, you're like,
Yeah.
It's like the town sheriff is often the town bank robber.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute,
And then the other work we really like is on DNA, because the double-strand DNA breaks are hard to repair. The DNA can't replicate from the other strand if they're both broken. And we've had that studied both. In one case, it was a person with cancer going through radiation, which is very, very good at breaking the DNA. And the other was done on athletes, which endurance athletes will do double-strand DNA damage. And it was significantly improved by the use of the NanoVi device. And so with the athletes, it was a week-long endurance training with and a week-long endurance training without the NanoVi, where they could compare the results. And it was an average of about 25% less of these double-strand breaks in the athletes.
Holy crap. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, you get like 3-5%. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, that's noteworthy and impressive and would indicate, cool, I'm going to buy one of these for my team. But that's huge.
And that was like a week's training with it.
Crazy.
And then the other one was in vitro, which is also nice because there's no placebo. When you have the cells in a petri dish, they don't have a placebo effect.
They don't have consciousness.
Exactly.
Or at least we think they don't.
We think of it.
Yeah.
Those little guys were irradiated intentionally to damage them, and just coincidentally exactly the same radiation that's used in cancer. And they are cancer therapy, I should say. And then they were treated both either before or after with the NanoVi. And in either case, there was less double-strand DNA damage than if they weren't treated.
To the radiation.
Correct.
Interesting. So that would indicate to me, and I'm not making a medical claim, and I know you aren't. I know the rules are tight on this, but to me, because I actually had someone in my Facebook group, by the way, listeners, I have a private Facebook group for listeners of the show called the Lifestyles Podcast. Search it in Facebook and join. One of the questions in there recently was, I'm going through chemotherapy. Does anyone have any suggestions on how to sort of combat the damage that the chemotherapy is doing to my body?
Well, there's a lot of people that just need to regain their energy after they've been through these different therapies. And so we do have a lot of experience with that. And if they're doing it at the same time as the therapy, it has to be coordinated medically.
Okay, I see.
Because if they're trying to bring the system down, you shouldn't be restoring it at the same time. You want to restore after.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was about to jump back in Facebook, go get an NanoVi.
Oh, yeah.
And then do it, in conjunction.
Do it constantly.
That's good, yeah.
The doctors will tell you that, too, that you don't want to be taking, trying to boost the system up on the same days as you're doing those therapies.
And so those are some pretty impressive studies. Who are some of the other users, and why are the professional race car drivers using the device?
They're awesome because they're biohackers.
Right.
So they're racing these hot Porsches, and they have a race today. I haven't been able to check the results. It's kind of driving me crazy because I've become a fan.
Right, because you're like, we want to see the NanoVi powered team win or whatever.
And there's even a little Eng3 on it, on the car.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
But they're driving the Nürburgring, and it is the longest racetrack, and it's considered, most people consider it the most dangerous race car track in the world. It's through hairpin curves and all over, and they're in these Porsches. And so their concentration is everything. They make, life-affecting decisions, something like, 50 a minute or something, really fast. So when they get in the car, they want to be absolutely peak performance. And so they're biohacking. I love it. They're doing a range of things, just like you would. And so before each driver, they cycle drivers. Before each driver gets in the car, they want to be peak, and they include the NanoVi to make that happen.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and one thing also is worth noting when it comes to the different prices of the devices too is that, as I understand it, it gets more expensive the shorter treatment time you want, right? But essentially, the lower price model is the same technology. It's
same technology.
Like in the 5,000 one and the entry level one, how long is a session?
It's an hour.
Okay.
And then there's a middle price that's a half hour, and then the J2 Racing team, I have to say their name.
That's cool. We'll put it in the show
They're so
notes.
fun, yeah.
That's cool.
But J2 has the 15-minute one because
that's the one I have,
And they actually started with the Pro device, the half hour, but it doesn't quite fit in because they're trying to do a lot of different things.
Right.
And so then we upgraded them to the Exo device so that they...
One thing that's cool about it too is it's those of you that are listening, you won't be able to maybe visualize this, but it's it's a thing about as big as a briefcase or something. Not even that. It's
like a small printer.
Desktop
printer.
Right. Yeah. Really small printer, and then it has this hose that's about 2 feet long that's flexible, and then you can just breathe it in out of this little hose, or you can put the nasal cannula on. But you can just I sit there and just work and do whatever I said, drive my car around. I sit there and meditate and just have it blowing in my face. So it's it's cool because it doesn't require, even if you had the one that takes an hour, it's really easy to. I'm always on mine like an hour anyway. Even though it's the 15-minute one because I
do that too.
You would like to get the
not,
maximum out of it.
I use it a lot. I use it a lot, or a few different sessions a day if I'm just sitting at my desk. Most people have time at the computer.
You were asking who is using it. We mentioned the sports team and those things. Corporate wellness is becoming a very important thing. People are using it in companies, and because it's easy to transport, you can share it with a lot of people. And now you have a device, one treatment, 15 minutes or 20 or half an hour, whatever, you can give it to the people while they are working. It does not interrupt it. It is on the desk. In our company, we are using it. We have a little cart that is getting moved from one office room to the other. And we know a lot of several other companies are starting to incorporate it. So because the people would like to have a peak performance while they are working. They would like to maintain
law firms and Wall Street, offices and things like that. Obviously, like the tech, the Silicon Valley, or that's interesting. That's interesting.
We got to get them going.
In my business, we only have one. Well, she's not an employee; she's a contractor, but she comes over and works quite a bit. But I'm like, oh man, if I had a larger company, I would have all this kind of technology, just get everyone on it, because I'm a good guy, and also it's really good for the bottom line to have people happy and healthy, and
it's huge for the bottom line.
Yeah, not being fatigued. So that's cool in terms of the investment.
And it is not only that the company's owners are using it to stay on their performance level where they are right now. They say, my God, I'm now beginning 50 and I would like to start another company when I'm mid 60. I need my same performance level, so I start better to do something. They also start to think about their employees and say, I need this guy here at the desk. I spent all this experience that he gained in all over the years. I don't want to lose him.
I like where a lot of what have become large corporations, like a company like Zappos, for example. I just read a book by the CEO and founder of that, and they're so good to their employees, and because they're so good to them, they have this really healthy company culture, and they're all about customer service, and they do all these fun activities, and all the food's healthy, and everyone has great water, and it's just like a really healthy environment, and they do billions of dollars a year, largely as a result of that company culture, and that they're creating an environment that is healthy and happy, and everyone interacts. They have all these activities and trips, and I think that's a really healthy state of affairs for the corporate entities around the world.
And Dave Asprey's doing that at Bulletproof. He's our friend Dave is doing that, and really taking care of people. And in the end, it's far better for the bottom line. It's cheaper to keep them than replace them, and not have sick days, not have jet lag days where people are off their game.
Right.
Yeah, it's our society moves slowly over in that direction to understand that prevention is an important part, not the repair when it is too late.
Right.
And in some countries, now I can take my home country, Germany as an example, corporate wellness is included as tax benefits. So companies that do corporate wellness in those areas, they have a tax deduction and they don't even pay anything for those things because they get it refunded. Yeah, but in the entire picture of the society, it saves a lot of money if you do it right there. Keep the people healthy, and
it saves everyone money except whom? Big Pharma. They're like, damn it, no more of these devices. We want people in surgery on meds. Okay, sorry, I digress.
That's another podcast.
No, I did Dr. William Davis yesterday. We went hardcore. He's not afraid to talk about that. So, okay, so thank you guys so much for joining me. Really lovely to get to meet you in person and go deeper with you. You've taught me a lot about biology, about this device, about all of this stuff, and my mind is swimming with new ideas. It's very fascinating. So, who have been 3 of each of your teachers in any field or teachings that have benefited you in your life that you might recommend our listeners go check out for themselves?
Teachers are an important person.
Anyone, yeah. Ideally, someone that they can go look up, and we can put in the show notes. So, if you learned, about your area of expertise from someone, further upstream from yourself, so to speak, like, who are your gurus,
Yeah, okay, my guru you cannot put up in your show is my mother. She says, stay focused, concentrated, do not give up, put patience and endurance in whatever you do.
Awesome. I'll give you, that can count as one. It's okay. A lot of people actually do that. They're like, oh, my grandfather, my mother, or something. I mean, some people are like Jesus Christ, so... I'm not swearing, I'm saying they literally say, Jesus is my teacher. That is someone you could go Google and learn from, clearly.
The next one, currently, Professor Jay Pollack is one of the persons who is not only incorporating the same thing, endurance and patient and things, also what he's driving forward with his groups of other researchers, and I met a lot of these researchers over the several years in important conferences mostly in Europe, Very helpful, very determined to do the right thing, very careful doing thing, knowing that a lot of things what they do could be at first disturbing for the general public. What does it mean? But they're working on it to bring it out. And we see a lot of people who are working in this area. They working on science. That is a very specific group focused, and then we see the people who are trying to implement science in daily products to be out there and to help change the world a little bit.
Awesome. How about you?
I would say Jimmy Carter.
That's interesting. That's definitely a first.
A humanitarian, and of that ability, that giving ability, and that being so conscientious about all of humanity. And I would also say Dr. Pollack, but for different reasons. He's just a wonderful person, and his whole presence, and that combined with his scientific contributions is, to me, he's just sort of, I really love to see him, and a little conversation with him goes a long way. And then I think I should pass on my third one because I have so many that would be different equivalents.
That's fine. I'll let you get away with that. And finally, we mentioned your website. Where can people find you on social media, websites, all that stuff?
Our Instagram is Eng3Corp, and then the URL for the website you mentioned earlier, eng3corp.com. And we're on, LinkedIn. There's a bit, but really and then Facebook is also Eng3Corp. It's easy to find if you search for Eng3 in Facebook.
We'll put that in the show notes. And listeners, as always, I want to remind you guys that if you want the show notes for this show and you want all of these links for every book and resource that we talk about, you can go to lukestorey.com/newsletter, enter your name and email, and every week I promise to send you the announcements for every podcast, including the very extensive show notes with all the links included. Wow. So don't forget to do that. lukestorey.com/newsletter. Thank you, Rowena. Thank you, Hans. It's been a pleasure to get to know you today, and enjoy the rest of your conference here at the Longevity Now Conference in Anaheim, California.
Thank you, Luke. It's been great.
Thank you.